Hi, I'm TJ, a supporter of the LGBT community and a member of ShuoMii Life. ShuoMii Life is a media group designed to empower a positive image of the LGBT community and people of color. And right now today for ShuoMii Life, I'm going to be doing an interview with a very special person, a very miraculous person, someone who played a couple seasons in the NFL, which just speaks to his character and professionality. This is my good friend Wade Davis here. How you doing, Wade?
Thank you so much. Good to meet you. Sorry about the hand.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You know, I'm sure you've had worse being in the NFL. Got the ice baths and everything.
My finger's all messed up. I got some pins here. This finger here is all messed up. So.
Pin? Oh, I gotta ask. What about the pin in the finger? Breaking up a pass?
Yeah. So I had pins put in here. This finger here has been dislocated probably 3 different times. I can probably touch my face and my nose at the same time. I've got a couple knee surgeries, dislocated kneecap, torn patella, torn meniscus, separated shoulder, so I'm tough.
Through the ringer. Yeah, I've been through the ringer. Yeah. I actually, I had a sprained ankle from the Jewish league out in Long Island. You know, from Long Island, so the Jewish league we get pretty rough in the basketball courts. So I got hurt. So I'm a big football fan.
Okay.
You know, I got to ask you, what was your best experience on the football field?
On the football field was probably playing over in NFL Europe. I was with the Berlin Thunder, and that was probably my second year in the NFL, and we won the NFL championship as far as overseas in Europe. And being in a foreign country, having an opportunity to make money, to kind of travel the world, and to just really bond with your teammates and friends was just an amazing experience.
I get you. Getting paid for doing what you love.
Exactly.
Not many people really get the chance to do that. One thing, you know, I mentioned in the intro, how I know you're a great guy, just because you obviously have to demonstrate a lot of hard work, a lot of passion to be a professional athlete. And also with your work in the community, you know, that I've become a little more aware of due to this interview. I want to know, what qualities do you think from being a football player have translated to you in your regular life?
I think the biggest thing that I learned as a football player is oftentimes my coach always said, what are you going to do when no one's looking? You know, so in the off season when there's no coaches around, like, am I still training hard? Am I still doing the things to make me a great player? So I think for the work I do now as an advocate, it's what am I going to do for my community when no one's watching, when the cameras aren't on me, or when no one's asking me any questions? Like, am I still living the life I need to live to make sure that I work to advance rights for LGBT people?
I understand that. I mean, it must be a struggle. You know, I understand that. You know, over the past, I want to say decade, tides kind of turning. Things are changing. Probably a more positive outlook. But in the days we do live in, like a former member of the Utah Jazz basketball player who came out, and a few other athletes. Do you think it's getting easier for athletes to be in that sports environment and be gay, or do you think it's getting harder for them?
I think it's getting easier because we're having more conversations about it. There are more LGBT allies out there who are sports athletes who are speaking out, saying that they have no problem with having a gay teammate. I think as long as those conversations keep happening, and more straight allies who are coming out saying, you know what, I have no problem playing with a teammate, I think it'll just keep players just thinking about, you know what, I can still be gay and be an athlete at the same time.
And that actually leads you to something I was thinking about asking you. Doing my research on you, or doing a little bit of research on you, you know, before we were having this interview, a lot of the articles you see says gay football player, things like that. And I want to know how you feel about that title. Do you think there's a negative connotation that comes with it, or would you prefer to just be called a football player, or does it bother you that they say gay football player? Is there a middle ground?
It doesn't bother me because I am gay and I'm a football player. I wish I had that title when I was playing, you know, just because then I would have known then that I'm living my truth and I'm out. I actually don't read articles that are written about me, so because I don't want to hear all that.
Stay away from the negativity.
I just don't want to have people trying to tear me down when I know I'm doing something positive. So anything that's written about me, I don't read it. Any articles that are out there, any videos that I've done, I don't even watch them, to be honest with you, because I want to make sure that every time I talk about what I'm doing, it's honest, it's authentic, and it's me. So I have no problem being referred to as a gay NFL player.
And I'll tell you this, you don't read them. I read a lot of them. They all portray you in a pretty positive light, so don't worry about that. You always look like you're moving in the right direction. Another thing I noticed, it's not just about gay and lesbian youth that you help all types of youth, right? So can you explain a little more about what you do with the youth?
So I work at the Hedge Martin Institute. It's the funder of the Harvey Milk High School and the founder of the high school. So I'm a director of job readiness. So my basic function is to educate youth about how to live, thrive, and survive on a job, how to get a job, how to maintain a job, how to make sure that the job that they're working at will help them toward their career. I also run our Youth Advisory Board. It's a group of youth that are charged with the task of understanding the population of HMI and reporting back to us about which programs that we should have and should not have. And then I also teach a class on male empowerment. Like, that was a big challenge for me, just to really try to understand how I can inspire youth of color to get them to understand the importance of education, but to also help them define success for themselves. I think oftentimes us as adults, we say, like, this is the path to be successful, but that
paint out a picture for them instead of letting them decide.
Yeah, because that's not the path for every person. You know, like, some kids who may drop out at 17 and get his GED and then get a job is the best path for him. So for me to really learn that my wishes for a youth may not be what's best for him. So step back, listen to these actual youth and say, okay, how can I give you the tools to be successful in any way possible?
Thank you. Well, that's a big role in communities nowadays, especially just someone pointing, in general, younger generation in the right direction. You know, not many people have had that. Which brings me to my next point. Who did you have growing up that kind of steered you on that right direction?
I think that's a twofold answer. I think as far as just being a man, my mother was big on that, and also my sister. Like, they were definitely very hard on me to go to school, to get good grades, and to not be just a football player. I think what I wish I had was someone who was gay that was in my life to help me understand what it meant to be a gay man as well. Because I think one of the biggest reasons why I didn't come out of the closet earlier was because I didn't see anyone who looked like me, who acted like me, who talked like me, who was gay. So I thought that being a football player and being gay just didn't exist. So I was like, okay, who I am deep down inside is not doable. So let me be someone else. So that's when I started to do all of the posturing, all of the trying to act like a straight guy, because I thought that that's what the world wanted me to do, and I thought that that's what the world would accept me as.
So it must have been, difficult at some points. One thing I noticed in one of your interviews that was pretty hilarious to me, you were talking about, I believe it was training camp with the Titans.
Yeah.
And you said you went out to the strip club.
I blew a lot of money on the strip club. Yeah, it was one of those times where you try to act like your teammates are acting, or you try to emulate people who you see as you're young and say, this is the stereotypical man. So if I'm acting like them and people believe that, no one's ever going to question my sexuality or my identity, because the last thing I wanted was to be ostracized or removed away from my teammates, who were my family at the time. So spending money, wearing oversized clothes, wearing 36 size t-shirts,
baggy jeans.
Yeah, I thought, I can pass as straight. And you realize that even though you're passing it straight, you're losing who you are as a person.
Yes. Was that like an uncomfortable feeling?
When I look back, it wasn't uncomfortable because I had did it for so long. It became who I was, but it wasn't who I was. So in a way, I was living a lie 24/7. But when you do it for so long, it becomes normal.
Like a second nature.
Yeah, it was like riding a bike, and when I look back, I'm so sad that I wasn't allowed to be myself. I'm so sad that I was never strong enough or given the space to identify as I wanted to.
So, do you have, some of your current friends? I'm assuming there's still some of the people you've played with, right? Do you feel that now that you have come out, things like that, do you think they would have accepted you the same way now if you were on the same team as them?
A lot of my teammates now, they're mad at me because they say that if I had have come out, they would have accepted me. I don't know if I can wholeheartedly believe that. I think it's easy to say.
Everyone's going to say.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that everyone's saying something that they don't actually believe in, but I think that there's outside forces. So when you're on a team, if there's one player who may be a star athlete on the team who says, you know what, I'm not cool with Wade being gay,
everybody's going to
people
follow
are going to
the
just
trend.
fall in line. Yeah. So I do believe that there are a lot of players who are okay with having a gay teammate, but I think if there's one, if there's two that are in a position of power that say, you know what, I'm not cool with it, others may fall in line.
I get you. So right now, you know, I guess you can't really say it's a transitional period in your life because you're pretty set in stone with what you're doing. Is this what you see yourself doing years to come, or do you see yourself expanding on that?
I'm really excited about the path that I see myself being on. I think that my biggest focus is right now on youth of color, you know, and some of the issues that are facing them, whether it's the HIV rates, whether it's the amount of youth that are going to prison. I really just want to become, I wouldn't say the voice, but just someone who is really up on the issues that are facing the youth of color today, you know, and I want them to think of me as someone who's trying to understand their struggle and who's trying to educate the world on ways that they're being oppressed.
So, you know, a young man playing football, you know, growing up through a football life, probably a different outlook than most, you know, regular everyday children who don't really, you know, grow up with that structure of a sport with them. When did you come out? How did it feel when you came out?
Coming out to myself was very different from coming out to other people. I think once I actually owned the fact that I was gay, like when I was in high school, I realized I was gay, but it's different between realizing it and owning it. I don't think I owned the fact I was gay until after I stopped playing football. I allowed football to distract me so much from my own sexuality that I didn't own it until I moved to New York City. And it was one of those, it was kind of like a blinding light that when you say, wow, like I'm really gay, I have to learn how to exist in this world now that I didn't really exist in before as a straight man. I mean, I existed in before as a straight person, but now I have to exist in this world as a gay man. So it was one of those times when you kind of have to, how do I put this, like reinsert yourself in the world as who you really are.
Like learning to walk again.
Yeah, and I would say the hardest part for me was learning how to love myself again. I think so much of my time I spent hating the fact that I was gay, you know, and for lack of a better word, being homophobic. You know, because like when you try to exist in a world as something who you're not, you hate who you are. And I hated myself for so long, and the process of learning how to love yourself again is a process that so many people have to be involved in. You know, like my partner's involved in it, and my friends and my family are involved in it, but it just took me so long to look in the mirror and say, I'm gay and I love who I am.
Being able to like accept yourself kind of comfortably.
And I don't think many people understand that process, is that, especially for me, like to hate yourself from the time you're 15, 16 until you're 24, 25, 26, that's 10 years, you know, of not loving myself, of not being able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you.
Well, they're pretty like crucial times too.
Yeah.
Time where you're discovering yourself, really molding yourself and who you're going to be. So they're deeply rooted. I can.
Yeah. So I would say that I didn't start living my life as Wade until I was 25, 26, 27. And by that time, so much of your life has passed. Like you've shaped yourself in such a way that that you're kind of reverting back to your adolescent stage. You know, I was kind of rebelling. You know, I was going out, I was doing things that I probably shouldn't have done because I wanted to experience what it was like to be gay. But mind you, I was 26. You know, so
kind of like reliving.
And
starting your life over. Almost.
And there's still a big part of me that's angry that I'm 30 something years old and I haven't had the experiences of most gay men who come out younger.
Do you think that, you know what you're saying, I know it's a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. Do you think that this experience in general, when you did come out, do you think it's brought you closer to your family and friends?
I won't lie, it's not brought me closer to my parents. I grew up in the South. My family is very, very religious. My mother and my father and I are going through a transition, you know, where I'm learning that even though I want them in my life, I don't need them in my life. And that's a scary moment, that when you think that, wow, like I may never have a partnership with my parents again, just because they don't accept who I am. And to own that and to think about that every day is very frightening. But it goes back to what I talk about all the time, that when you come out, you have to have a support structure. And I have that now from my friends and also from my partner. And there are other members of my family who do accept me. But when your mother and your father don't, it can be heartbreaking if you don't have that backup structure.
Do you think that was probably one of the reasons why it took you a little bit of time to come out, because of the family environment you were raised in, that you felt that you weren't going to be accepted?
I definitely think it did. I think I was a big time mama's boy, and I wanted my mother's love at all costs. You know, I can remember going home from high school, laying in bed with my mother, watching All My Children. You know, like, so I was such a mama's boy that I wanted to be around her 24/7. I remember actually as a kid, I used to think that if my mother passed away, I would have to kill myself because I was that in love with her. So when I came out to her, and to have her reject me the way that she did was it was transformative as far as the rest of my life, because I had to kind of like find my strength in a moment when I was very, very weak and vulnerable, and that was very hard. And I can also remember when I came out to my mother, watching her in certain ways die, you know, because the son who she groomed to be the strong black man, to have kids and to have a family, that dream of hers was now lost. So I had to try to reconcile my feelings of feeling her actual pain, but then still wanting to be myself, you know, like realizing that, you know what, Mom, you're 50, you're an older woman now. I need to be able to live my life, and to look at her and watch her cry, and to watch her go through what she did based on something that I did, was very hard. So I'm like, how do I live for me, but also not watch my mother sit here and cry and go through so much pain? So it was very hard for me to reconcile that.
One of your interviews, you were explaining the pain you felt when you came out to one of your friends, as said it almost felt like you're ripping a scab off your body. And I believe the words you used were it was probably the best feeling of bleeding out and the worst at the same time. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what made it the worst and what made it the best?
What made it the worst? Because I was so afraid. You know, it's like when you have that Band-Aid on and you know it's gonna hurt, but you know that you have to do it.
Take it off.
It was the best feeling because I was finally going to be free. Like, I was finally going to start living for myself. Like, there was never a time in my life where I felt as if I was living for what Wade wanted. Like, I was living for my mother thinking I needed to be this, or people seeing me as an athlete, and an athlete has to be this. This was the first time I was actually going to be Wade. Like, I was going to make all my own choices, all my own decisions, and not have to worry about what someone else thought. So, but it's very scary to step out on that faith. You know, it's extremely scary, but it was also so empowering to, like, wow, I'm finally taking charge of my own life. Like, no longer will I live by the narrative of someone else. Like this is my time now, you know. And I think, like, people assume that when you're an athlete, that everything is given to you, everything's handed to you, that you are living your life. No, like, there's still rules you have to follow. And there's the rules of masculinity that I bought into, that men act like this, men don't wear pink sneakers, you know, men don't do X, Y, and Z. I was finally starting to write my own rules and to start living by my own playbook, for lack of a better word. And so that was scary, but it felt so damn good. It felt so good.
Like a liberation type of feeling?
A liberation isn't even the word for it. It was like being born again. You know, like to be able to wake up and look at my partner and to walk out of the house with him and hold his hand and kiss him in public and not care how anyone thought, like what anyone felt. And like, that's a different feeling than even liberation.
I think that's funny, because nowadays I think people have distorted views of what they think masculinity is and things like that. I would argue to say that masculinity is being able to do whatever you say or feel or want to do, without not necessarily worrying about the repercussions or the responses of the outside world and things like that. How do you feel that society as a whole has treated you? Do you feel like your treatment has changed or anything like that, or better or worse?
I think the idea of masculinity first of all, that's one of my least favorite words in the world because I don't even know what masculinity is. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know
like
what
a
femininity
perception.
is. Yeah, you know, I think that what happens is we buy into what masculinity is. Like we buy into the stereotypes of being strong and manly and can dominate women's bodies. Like those are ideas of what's being masculine. So I think that my problem is I bought into that, you know, tooth and nail. You know, so I was like, this is how a man acts, and part of that's being an athlete. You know, I think oftentimes that our parents, especially fathers, oftentimes make their sons play sports. It's nothing to do with their son being an athlete. It's about them showing someone else, like, look at my son. He's a football player, and that kind of validates them and their own ideas of what being a man is. I think for a lot of us, other people's ideas of masculinity shape how we act in this world. So my biggest goal is to change that narrative, like so people understand that you can be gay and be masculine. You can be straight and be non-masculine, and you're still a man.
I most definitely agree with that. Anyone who can play in the NFL, regardless of your sexuality, gotta be a pretty masculine dude, especially being a D-back.
Yeah, you know,
those guys
but
coming
again,
at you.
like, I'm a firm believer that you don't even have to play a sport, and you should still be perceived as masculine. I think that again that we oftentimes we put these athletes on these pedestals, you know, and we look at them as oh my God, he plays a sport, he's got to be the man's man, you know, and I think that's why I also oftentimes women, immediately if a woman's a great athlete, she's deemed a lesbian, you know, that a woman who identifies as straight, that may, you know, not be the stereotypical athlete, like people always say, well, she can't be a great athlete and be straight. So I think oftentimes it's just an attack on the masculinity.
It's kind of out of their
man.
norm of a woman to be athletes.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's just male privilege. That's all it is. That us as men don't want a woman to be feminine and be a good athlete and be straight, because we think that how can this woman do something better than I can and still be deemed straight.
It's like a pride-driven perspective.
Yeah, it's just male privilege.
And it's funny now. There's the differences in things, like they're straight male designers now. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure there was a time where people didn't think that was going to happen. Now we have female athletes, so it's working back and forth. What do you think the turning of the tide is really going to be? You know, when it's going to be completely acceptable for people of all ages, and I mean, you go down to high school and middle school. I don't want to give a time frame or a specific note to when you can determine your sexuality, but how long do you think it's going to be for everything's going to be acceptable? For when, if your child comes to you, he's 13, he says, I'm gay, you don't have a problem with it, he can still play sports and be in that comfortable atmosphere without people ostracizing him?
I think we're getting close. You know, I would say as long as we keep having these conversations, as long as people are thoughtful about what it is to be a human being. You know, I think as long as our humanity keeps growing, I don't think there's this magic number. I wish I could say it's tomorrow, but I think as long as people who are heterosexual start to understand that the idea of masculinity has nothing to do with your orientation, that if these types of interviews keep happening and people start to come out more, then people will start to not care so much and it'll just become the norm.
So, current ventures in life, you want to speak to those?
I think some of the most exciting stuff I'm doing is being an Obama surrogate for LGBTQ people. That's something that is a true blessing, you know, to be able to go out and talk about how the president has not only been an ally of people who identify as gay and lesbian since his announcement, but even before that, and to really educate people about all the laws that he's passed, you know, since he first came into office. Like, those are things that are very exciting, and it's something to me that I never thought I'd be doing, so I feel so honored and blessed to be doing that. I'm also very excited to be working with the Black AIDS Institute. I'm actually speaking at the International AIDS Conference next week to really talk about some of the issues that Black MSM face, because I think people in our community don't understand that there's an epidemic that there's a crisis that's facing men who have sex with men, and then just to really start telling stories of the youth that I deal with, because they're the real heroes. You know, I think people often see me as a hero, but I get inspired by the youth that I work with. I remember it was probably my third week on the job. I watched one of my youth hop on the subway, and they didn't see me, and they present very differently than what the norm is in America. And I watched people on the subway objectify him and look at him and look at him as if he wasn't an American, and if he wasn't human. And to sit back and think that people who are on this train may identify as gay or lesbian can be horrified by someone who's living in their own truth. It's something that scares me. It's something that makes me think that I have a lot of work to do. Something that makes me think that our youth need to be telling this story, because even though I have a platform, they can speak from actual experiences. I didn't experience being ostracized for being gay and lesbian. I didn't experience having my own people in the gay community push me to the margins because I didn't fit the actual mold of what we deem as okay and being gay. So the work that I do to help our youth experience success and define success for themselves and not allow people to put them in boxes, that's what feeds my soul right now.
It's a beautiful thing, helping others. One thing that I feel kind of bad about, because honestly I don't want you to catch any hard spots for it. I didn't ask you about your partner.
Oh no, that's cool. So I've been with my partner, it'll be 6 years in December, actually Christmas Eve actually. He's an Australian. He is my hero, to be honest with you. He is a person that's helped me learn how to dream. I think for a long time I wished, but there's a difference between wishing and actually dreaming. And he's been very instrumental in that, and he supports me tooth and nail. And I also think that people don't realize how when you come out, you have to have that person to go home to who can understand what you're going through. And he's my little rock, you know, and he still treats me the exact same. He still says, "You're doing interviews, right? But go do the dishes." You know, so like it's so great to feel like you can go home and be yourself and sit around and
get treated normal.
Yeah, eat Doritos and chips and stink up the kitchen and whatnot with bad food, and have him look at me and go, "You're doing all of those dishes all by yourself," you know. So it's just great.
Someone keep you grounded.
Yes, I mean,
yeah, I want to make sure I threw that in.
I
don't want him watching the interview. Why did you talk about me?
No, he's so supportive. He doesn't feel as if he needs to be in the spotlight. He really just wants me to keep doing the work that I'm doing. And we're actually teaching each other so much. He says I'm so much more politically correct now because I'm just very conscious about my language, and I'm just very, very conscious about to make sure that I'm setting us back in the work that I want to do.
So not just with young athletes, but just young adults, because that's something you do focus on. First, let's do, particularly within the LGBT community, is there any advice you have for someone who is coming out or who has those feelings?
One of the big things I've learned is that to not allow people to put you in a box, you know, to not live to societal norms. You know, if you want to identify as gay Monday and straight on Tuesday and bisexual on Wednesday, do that. Like, don't let anyone else tell you who you can and can't be. And that's something that I wish someone had taught me from a very early age, because I think it allows you to identify yourself for yourself. I'm reading a lot of Audre Lorde right now, and I think that one of the biggest things that she said is, you know, is to define yourself for yourself, or others will define yourself for you. And I think that that's what happened to me. Like, I allow others to define who I was. So I want the young kids to define themselves for themselves.
So another big thing, or the biggest thing for me, you know, which is, it's going to be like a stupid question to really end on.
There's no dumb question.
But I mean, so being a defensive back, you guys probably do the second most film study preparation.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of that.
You know, to a quarterback, you know, two positions probably do the most film study. Being in the NFL, playing overseas, I just got to ask, when were you the most like starstruck, you know, being on the field?
In the preseason game was I had to guard Randy Moss. Cool. And I can remember Randy Moss running at me and me thinking I better turn and run a little earlier. And I can remember I'm running side by side. I was like, wow, I'm actually running with Randy Moss and he's not leaving me in the dust. And then I remember thinking to myself, oh God, I hope he doesn't throw this. You know, because I was a rookie free agent, and the last thing I wanted to do was be on SportsCenter getting embarrassed by Randy Moss. You know, and luckily the ball wasn't thrown. I remember jogging back to the huddle, kind of giving Randy Moss the ball and saying, I had you, and him kind of laughing, going, yeah, right. You know, so that was probably one of the biggest moments.
Oh, it's amazing. It's wonderful. That's actually beautiful. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you for having me.
On behalf of ShuoMii Life, we actually got you a little present.
Oh, nice.
First edition of the newsletter and
Yes.
the shirt. So you're an official member for life.
Seriously?
Seriously.
I'm a life member of
Seriously.
ShuoMii.
And
Yes,
it was
sir.
absolutely free, your membership.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, brother.
Anytime.
Take care.
That was Wade Davis. We're very happy to have him. I think it went great. Have a good one.